Hello, everybody. How are you doing this fine Monday? I'm doing quite well. I have been offline a little bit lately because I did have court last week. I will tell y'all it was a very good court date. I will tell y'all I won, and more updates on that coming very soon. So, in the meantime, I did want to update you all on what's going on in the Diddy case. I do have the docket pulled up right here, and stuff's happening all the time. Okay, so here is the docket, and I believe that we are caught up all the way through around here or here. I think it was the 8th through 9th motions that we still have not discussed. Now, obviously, I could make a video on every single one of these, but I'm not. I'm going to try and give y'all the rundown just to get you caught up to speed, because today is Monday, November 11th. It's Monday. I am sure sometime this week there's going to be a lot more filings hitting the docket. So let's get caught up now. Starting with docket number 60, and this is a motion for bond. This is Diddy's second request to this court. Now, this is the underlying court. This is not the appeals court. Now, as you may know, Diddy has already applied for bail one time and it was denied. It was denied. He appealed it. It was denied again. I think he appealed it again. It was denied again. And then it was up for appeal again. But the last I checked over there on the appeals case, Diddy had actually been awarded a time extension from that judge. And the time extension is to allow this judge at the lower level court to decide on this second proposed bail package. So let's start there. Okay. So the first document that we have here, this is docket number 60. This is a simple notice of motion for bail. And as you can see, it does say, please take notice upon the declaration of Mark Agnifilo, and this is Diddy's lawyer, dated November 8th, the exhibits attached hereto and the accompanying memorandum of law. Diddy, by and through his attorneys, will move this court for an order releasing Diddy on the proposed conditions or any other conditions the court seems appropriate. So again, this one is only just a little 2-pager. Really, it's only one page, one paragraph. So let's move on to the next document. So this is what we just read was docket number 60. Now we're going to move on to docket number 61, which is the memo in support of the motion for bond. Now, this is docket number 61. This one is substantially longer. As you can see, it is 27 pages long. We're not going to read through each thing word for word. Like I said, the purpose of today's video is to get y'all caught up to speed, and specifically to get you caught up to speed on the Diddy criminal case. There's all kind of other cases going on right now that are not the criminal case. We'll get caught up on those eventually, but I wanted to get y'all caught up to speed on the criminal case because this is the case that's being brought on behalf of we, the people. Okay. As you can see, it says memorandum of defendant Sean Combs in support of his renewed motion for bail. Okay. Now, I will tell y'all this is the public document. This is the public version of this document, so it is redacted. It has some big black bars going on over it. Again, not going to read the whole thing, but I have some highlighted parts. The introduction really does lay out what the arguments are. So let's get into those. It says Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs, through his counsel, renews his motion for release. He wants to be released. Why? First grounds. Diddy has provided an updated bail package. So remember when he had offered up his $50 million mansion and all this other crap or whatever? He's done that again. So we're going to read that in a moment. The other reason that he is renewing the request to be released is because of some supposed new evidence that has been found during the discovery phase, specifically about Cassie. And he says that the video, the CNN video, is not evidence of a coerced FO, but rather it was just a minutes-long glimpse into a complex but decade-long consensual relationship. So he's really digging his heels into the fact that apparently getting your ass beat in an elevator bank is consensual. Who knew? I mean, he keeps trying to argue this, but it keeps being nonsensical, in my opinion. I just really wish he would just stop doing that. Because, like, I'm over here trying to give everybody benefit of the doubt, all sides, all that. And it's like he just throws it in the garbage can whenever he keeps trying to act like getting beat the hell out of by a predator monster in the middle of the public elevator bank with cameras on you is somehow a consensual thing. Like, can you stop? Can you stop? Thank you. Anyway, the other grounds of new evidence or whatever that Mark Agnifilo claims that he has here is he claims that he's found evidence that confirms the government's obstruction and witness tampering allegations lacked a factual basis. So he's basically going to say, look, Your Honor, one of the reasons that you wouldn't let my client out had to do with the fact that allegedly there was obstruction and witness tampering on the behalf of Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs. And Mark Agnifilo is saying that's not true. There's no factual basis for that. The government just like literally talking out the side of their neck. Like they have no idea what they're talking about. So that's the second grounds. Remember, the first grounds was that they are re-proposing a new and updated bail package, which is supposed to cure the defects from the first denial. Second, they found some new evidence. And third, Diddy's, allegedly, according to Diddy's lawyer, current conditions of confinement are infringing upon his constitutional rights. Okay, so Diddy's lawyer is arguing three major things, saying this is the reason why he needs to be let out, Your Honor. Number one, we're going to offer up some more certainties that he's not going to run away and he's not going to obstruct witnesses and things like that. We'll talk about what the proposed bail package is in a moment. The second reason why you should let him out, Your Honor, is because the government basically lied whenever they told you some stuff earlier, and we're going to tell you what the lies were. And number three, it's unconstitutional the way that they got him locked up right now, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so this is the three main arguments of why Diddy should be released on bail, according to Diddy and his lawyer. Okay, so first, Mark Agnifilo just outlines that the judge does have authority to release him on bail, specifically because he needs to prepare for his defense. And we're going to talk about what Mark Agnifilo is saying in a moment. First, let's get into their point number one. This is the updated proposed bail package. Okay, point one was the bail package. They've updated it. Okay, what's the new proposals? $50,000 bond, again, is what they're proposing. Again, it was $50,000 bond last time too. 50 million, obviously 50 million. I said 50,000. It's not. It's 50 million. But this time it would be co-signed by Diddy, his mother, who they don't give her name, but it's Janice Combs, and then his sister. I didn't even know Diddy had a sister. Who's the sister that's co-signing the $50 million bond? The mother of his oldest daughter is also going to co-sign the $50 million bond. The mother of his youngest daughter. So the mother of the oldest daughter, I think her name is Chance, and the mother of his youngest daughter, who her name is Love, and the three adult sons. Okay. That would be Quincy, Christian, and Justin. Okay. Now the $50 million bond would be secured by the equity in Diddy's residence located in Miami. That was that same $48 million property, and that is the same one that we already saw Lou Taylor of TriStar Sports and Entertainment had appraised as the client. Further secured by the equity of Diddy's mom's home, so Janice Combs' home in Florida. So I'm not sure what's exactly new here, other than maybe a few more people are signing. So number one, it's pretty much not really anything new as far as I'm concerned. You know, maybe like the mother of his kids are going to co-sign for this $50 million bond. Not really sure that really helps very much with the judge's concern. So let's look at the second point of Diddy's new proposed bail package. He says he would agree to full home detention at his residence in Miami or at a suitable location in New York with GPS monitoring. So he wants to go back to Miami, but also is willing to stay in New York. Counsel will travel to this location for any in-person meetings with Diddy. We will also have meetings via video. To the extent that Diddy's travel is necessary to attend court or pre-approved medical appointments, his travel will be restricted to the southern and eastern districts of New York and the Southern District of Florida. Again, I'm not sure this is really different. I'm waiting for the new part of the proposal. Okay, and he will pay the cost of the location monitoring. I think he offered to do that last time as well, so I'm still looking for the new part. Okay, the third point that they offer up is that he would be monitored 24/7 by qualified security personnel approved by the government and pretrial services. Is like the parole people. It's not the parole people because he's not on parole. It's called pretrial services in this instance, but they kind of act the same way that a parole officer or whatever would act. So they're saying, okay, we'll also submit to the 24-hour monitoring, including up to GPS. Again, I'm still wondering what's new. Let's keep going. Diddy will have no access to telephones or the internet except for during calls with lawyers to be arranged by security personnel. Okay, who's the security personnel? Again, I mean, nothing really brand new. I think last time he specifically said his security would be hired to do it, and maybe they changed the language a little bit here. They also said that they will restrict all visitors except for his lawyers and pre-approved list. So restricting all visitors, it does seem to be slightly a little bit different because remember last time it was like restrict female visitors, but he would still have access to his employees and everything else. And it's like a lot of people were kind of clowning on him and being like, okay, but what about the male visitors? Because you're being accused of abusing the males too. So now it's restricting all visitors. That's their new thing they're offering, except for his lawyers, and a pre-approved list only consisting of specific family members with the consent of pretrial services and the government. Family visits will be scheduled only with pretrial services approval. Security personnel will monitor family visits. That doesn't really help me, right? I mean, we're being told in a lot of these civil lawsuits, again, allegations that are just that until they are proven in court or they are substantiated somehow with videos or something. But we're being told in many civil lawsuits that Diddy's bodyguards were helping him effectuate a lot of this stuff, allegedly. So I'm not really sure how being monitored by bodyguards or security personnel is really going to help very much. Mr. Combs shall avoid all contact directly or indirectly with any person who is or may be a victim or witness in the investigation. Okay, so he'll avoid contact, including not, directing others to contact these people. I mean, this is what he's saying he will do. Will he actually do it? Would he actually abide by it? Who knows? And he said that he would also consent to provide pretrial services, random access to the residence. So basically, hey, pretrial services, parole type people, whatever, y'all can just pop into my house anytime you want to. I'm agreeing to it if you let me out of jail. Diddy's passport was surrendered in April, and the council will give that over to pretrial services. The following family members have also already given up their passports to the lawyers. So who has given up their passports? We've discussed this list before, but let's just go over it. Janice, that's the mom. Chance, the oldest daughter. And then Jesse and Delilah, who are the twins. Now, the sons notably have their passports still, and at least two of them are kind of implicated in some of these lawsuits. Okay, so the passports for the sons. Okay, anyway, and they were continuing efforts to try and sell his airplane, Diddy Air. Diddy will submit to testing for a prohibited substance. So he's saying, I will get drug tested, alcohol tested, whatever. It can be used with random frequency and can include urine testing, wearing of a sweat patch, a remote alcohol testing system, and any form of prohibited substance screening or testing. Diddy must not obstruct, attempt to obstruct, or tamper with the efficiency and accuracy of prohibited substance screening or testing. He must participate in a program or counseling if directed by pretrial services office and all other standard conditions. Additionally, for the avoidance of any doubt, and as stated during the September 18th, 2024 initial hearing on the bail matter, quote, if your honor wants something more or different, we can do whatever your honor thinks is necessary. So they're basically saying, whatever you say, whatever you want us to do, just let the man out of jail, please. Pending trial. These proposed conditions present an extremely substantial bail package. Okay, so he goes on to praise it. Now, this part of the proposed bail package thing I found to be very interesting because they're actually citing, that is to say, Diddy's lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, is citing the Abercrombie case here in Diddy's case. The Abercrombie case just happened a couple weeks ago, right? Whenever the Abercrombie CEO went to the bail hearing and they let him out or whatever, they didn't or whatever. They're citing that here. Mike Jeffries, remember? Mark Agnifilo said, indeed, the government recently successfully requested pretrial release for two similarly situated defendants, including a CEO accused of ST, dozens of young men, including through witness intimidation. And then they cite the case right here, Jeffries. In that case, the government sought release, despite claiming the defendants relied on the services of a security company to surveil and intimidate witnesses, thereby securing their silence. The conditions of release requested in the Abercrombie case pale in comparison to the conditions proposed by Mr. Combs here. So Diddy's lawyer is saying, Okay, the conditions of that guy's release, the Abercrombie guy's release, they're nothing compared to what we're proposing here on our own accord. So, by virtue of that, you should let Diddy out of jail. He goes on to say there in the Abercrombie case, the one that's like literally just going on right now, the government requested bonds of $10 million and $500,000 respectively for the two released defendants. And then they released them to go to home detention with a GPS monitor. The requested conditions included no additional security or surveillance arrangement whatsoever. But one thing that they did leave out here is that the CEO's boyfriend or husband or what, I don't think they ever got married, he's locked up, but he is a UK resident. So that would be the differentiating factor there. But they do fail to mention that at least one of the defendants in this case is locked up. Okay. So Diddy's lawyer goes on to say the updated bail package proposal, like the thing we're proposing right now, mitigates the specific concerns that the judge had in that initial hearing. So the judge had certain problems in the initial hearing, and all those problems have been mitigated, and this is why. During the hearing, Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs says Judge Carter's primary concern appeared to be a risk that Diddy could obstruct justice and intimidate witnesses. And it did appear that that was the judge's primary concern. It wasn't really that he was a flight risk per se. It was that he had been accused of using employees and other people and even his own phone to blow people's phone up and stuff like that and intimidate them, threaten them, etc. That was an allegation made. And the judge said, okay, well, because of that allegation, there's really nothing we can do to fix that. So no, you got to stay in jail. Specifically, the judge said Diddy would, quote, would still have access to employees and other individuals and could obstruct justice and intimidate witnesses through these folks, through even coded messages if necessary. However, under the proposed updated bail conditions, Diddy would not have access to employees and friends and the like. So he's saying, okay, so we updated it. We updated it, Your Honor. You were concerned about him talking to employees, friends, and the like. Fine. We took that part out. He won't be able to talk to employees or friends or anybody, only specific family members and his lawyers. So we fixed that part for you, Your Honor. Okay. So that was the updated bail package part. Remember, there were 3 grounds upon which Diddy and his lawyer are trying to get Diddy released so that he can be out and free before his trial. The first one, they updated their proposed bail package. More people are signing the co-sign agreement. Diddy's saying, fine, my friends won't come over. No guests can come over without being pre-approved. You know, he kind of updated it a little bit. The second grounds for why they are saying Diddy should be released has to do with this supposed new evidence. So let's get into that part. The indictment has 3 counts. Number 1, racketeering, conspiracy. Number 2, ST by force, fraud, coercion. And number 3, transportation to engage in P, stitution. Diddy's lawyer says count 2, that is the one, the force, fraud, coercion, ST, alleges that Diddy committed the crime of ST starting in 2009 and concluding 6 years ago in 2018 against a single victim, that is victim 1. The indictment contains no allegation of additional victims or minor victims. There is no allegation that any ST occurred in the last 6 years. Okay, so you see this little footnote 4? The indictment, this is the indictment that the government filed. We're talking about the criminal case here. The indictment contains no allegation of additional victims or minor victims. There is no allegation that any ST occurred. Okay. The indictment contains no allegation of additional victims or minor victims. So they're saying the only victim they talk about is Cassie. Okay. The indictment of the government itself does not talk about minors. Okay. And they put a little footnote. So let's go to that. It says, as of the date of this submission, a total of 7 lawsuits brought by plaintiffs' lawyers have alleged some form of S activity of a minor. While this is outside the criminal case and the subject of bail, let us be clear that these allegations are absolutely false. It bears repeating that the U.S. Attorney and scores of Department of Homeland Security agents have been investigating Diddy for almost a full year, and there is no criminal charge of any conduct involving a minor. Okay. So they're saying, yeah, Your Honor, in the criminal case, there's 7 different lawsuits that allege that a minor was allegedly abused by Diddy or whatever. But that is not what the government is claiming here. So this has nothing to do with children. And if it did, then the government needs to go ahead and say it does, right? Okay. Then they go on to talk about just how much evidence has been exchanged and has come up in this case. Agnifilo says, over the past 6 weeks, the defense has received approximately 23.5 terabytes of discovery material. Okay, so that's just what Diddy's lawyer has received, 23.5 terabytes. The material reveals new information about the case, the evidence, and the government's previous bail contentions. And he says, this was not known to us the last time we argued for bail. We got some new information, Your Honor. The new material, according to Diddy, demonstrates that the government previously misrepresented the weight of the evidence. And it undermines the government's claim that Diddy presents a danger. Okay, so then they start getting into some stuff that's redacted. As you can see, I mean, I didn't do this. This was already like this. This is a public document. So they just blacked out all this stuff. The first mention of any ST or unwanted S contact involving the alleged victim one was in November 2023 after they broke up in 2018. The evidence shows these allegations were merely attempts to obtain a financial windfall from Mr. Combs. So then Agnifilo goes on again here to describe Cassie as a bitter, cloud-chasing, money-hungry, scorned lover who consented to having her beat in the middle of an elevator. I mean, that's pretty much how I'm reading it. Y'all can pause it and read it yourself if you have a different interpretation, let me know. And then there's some talk. Well, there was some talk about an alleged second victim, but nobody ever named that victim. So that person doesn't exist, is what Mark Agnifilo is kind of trying to say. On top of that, the government has not made any attempts to speak to this alleged victim. And then his conclusion is the government misled the court and concealed important true facts whenever they were initially arguing for bail. Okay. So then they say what evidence it was exactly that the judge considered to be the most important or the most persuasive. It says Judge Carter considered this as the government's most persuasive evidence. And what was that? That was Diddy's 2024 communications with another person. Okay. I think it was like whenever he had texted somebody like 118 times in a day or whatever. I mean, I don't exactly remember the number, but you remember when he was like contacting this person a lot of times? Well, Diddy's lawyer is saying, okay, that's false. That's not exactly what was going down, Your Honor. We have new evidence. They quote the judge. They say in the original bail hearing, the judge said, if he's aware of this in April 2024, then again, why is he contacting witnesses in June and July 2024? What would be the purpose of Mr. Combs continuing to speak to that witness after September 11th? Right? So he's calling her a witness. But the recent discovery now corroborates the defense arguments at the initial bail hearing. So he's saying recent discovery actually backs us up what we were trying to tell you in the first place, Your Honor. At the hearing, Diddy's lawyer, I think it was the Shapiro or the Shapiro girl. I don't think it was Agnifilo. It might have been Agnifilo, but I think it was Shapiro. At that hearing, Diddy's lawyers explained that his contacts with those people were not obstructive. So they were not trying to obstruct justice. They were just simply reaching out 118, 50, 11 times because something else, not to obstruct. Girl. Please. And then they say one grand jury witness contacted Diddy, not the other way around. The communications in September were with an individual represented by a lawyer who wanted to make a public statement. And to the extent individuals were contacted, Diddy's lawyers explained that to conduct a reasonable defense investigation, it had to interview witnesses. So the lawyers are kind of saying there was nothing wrong with Diddy reaching out over and over and over again to any of these people. So they block some stuff out. We don't know what they say here, but then it says during its proffer to the court, the government concealed these facts. Which facts? These. They blocked out. We don't know what they are. So then they go on to talk about this male companion agency where the models, the males, had stated that they were paid for their time and their appearance, and they were not paid for having relations. Now, interestingly, we do have a Busby lawsuit that is filed by a male John Doe alleging to be from a male companion agency. And to my memory, I mean, we've read over this lawsuit, but to my memory, this man kind of said, yeah, I mean, it was an agency for models, but we were expected to engage in what. I mean, now I'm wondering, it's hard to keep them separated. Was that actually a Diddy case? I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Okay. And then Diddy and his lawyer go on to talk about how Diddy has very strong ties to the community. And apparently, allegedly, the fact that he was an altar boy and went to a Catholic school means that he has good character. I mean, I'm not buying it, but okay. Hilariously, they say that Diddy wrote and sang his first hit song, I'll Be Missing You. A girl who wrote that song, because I'm pretty sure it was a Sting song and you changed one word. But and then the rest of the people singing on it was Faith Evans. I don't know where Diddy was singing on this thing at all. He was singing. I need to go give that a listen. He produced the MTV reality show Making the Band. So they're just going over his CV here. And then they're going on to say, you know, who all's charities he donated to, which we know how that works. So, girl, I mean, that don't necessarily mean you're a good person. Okay. It means maybe perhaps you're a good person. Maybe perhaps you wanted to write some taxes off. Maybe perhaps you needed to wash some of your money in your friend's charities. Who knows? I wasn't there. I certainly was not there. This part I found to be very interesting. It says Diddy raised over $2 million for New York City public schools and, quote, hosting a virtual dance-a-thon that raised more than $4 million to provide personal protective equipment to healthcare workers on the front line of the you know what. And girl, is this the dance-a-thon that the kids were coming up on there and saying, I'm Diddy's white adopted daughter and I'm a Sagittarius? Is this the same dance-a-thon? They raised $4 million? I have questions. And then they keep going on about, you know, Diddy has all these ties to the community. His family needs him. You know, Kim Porter is dead. And now his other kids, they don't have a father because he's in jail right now. Then he got this 2-year-old, can't see him. The mom had, I didn't know this, Janice recently had a brain surgery operation. She was in the hospital this summer with a heart issue. Although Diddy's not his mother's only caregiver, he does assist with her medical care. Yeah, I'm so sure. Okay, so that was the first 2 reasons why Diddy's lawyer is saying he needs to be released. Okay, the first one, look, Your Honor, we updated the bail package. The second one, oh, there's all this new evidence and the government lied and they were not truthful and we have all this new evidence and you need to let him out. Okay, and then the third grounds for them saying that they want Diddy released is it's unconstitutional. Diddy cannot adequately prepare for his trial under his current conditions. And then they get into this sob story about how Diddy is facing the same exact conditions in jail as everybody else that's in jail. And look, listen, I'm kind of on both sides of the issue because I do think it's not really fair. I do. It's my personal opinion. I don't think it's fair. We're about to talk about the conditions, but at the same time, this is what happens in jail. It is what happens in jail. This is how people in jail are treated. And so it's like not like Diddy's getting some type of special bad treatment. It's like everybody who's in the jail is going to be subjected to these conditions. So it's like I think we need to like rehaul the whole system and not just give special treatment just to Diddy, in my opinion. But let me show y'all what I'm talking about. Page 18 says, Mr. Combs cannot adequately prepare for trial while detained at the Metropolitan Detention Center. First of all, it's too much stuff. They got 23.5 terabytes and terabytes of data extracted from at least 96 devices seized at Diddy's residences. God dang, 96 devices. And then they go on to discuss a terabyte size, right? A terabyte of data is roughly equivalent to the information contained in the books on 12 floors of a typical academic library. The data here is so large that the government represented it needs to engage in further dialogue on how to even get it to us, okay? On top of that, we trying to get Diddy a laptop. And he don't have a laptop. At the very least, we need Diddy to have a laptop so he can read the crap. I mean, you can't put the flash drive up to your head and telepathy it. Okay, like we need him on a laptop at the extreme least that has no internet or whatever, that just can look at the file. Like we need to give him a leap pad or something, Your Honor. Mark, or whoever this is, might be the Shapiro girl. The defense, that's Diddy's lawyers, recent attempts to confer with the government regarding Diddy's use of a laptop further confirm the current conditions are not tenable. He needs a laptop so he can work on his case as often as possible in his own time. However, even though he has been in custody since September, he still does not have a laptop. Defense counsel has been working with prosecutors since Diddy's arrest to supply him with a laptop that complies with the security requirements. After numerous delays occasioned in part by the government's misunderstanding of the prison rules, the laptop the lawyers tried to give Diddy nearly a month ago still hasn't been given to him. This means he cannot review certain files while at the detention center, and this includes discovery critical to his defense. They're saying, look, the government has numerous agents, endless resources at its disposal to conduct its review, and my client deserves a fair trial. It literally, quote, will be impossible for Diddy to review this volume of evidence under the present conditions. Now, on top of that, they go further. They say on top of that, on top of the laptop, the current conditions at the detention center further impair Diddy's ability to prepare for his defense. To start, the frequent lockdowns at this prison persist. So there's a lot of lockdowns that happen apparently at the MDC where he is being held in detention. Just last week, the lawyer says, the quote, long troubled facility was subject of a multi-agency law enforcement sweep. and yet another corresponding lockdown. During that sweep and lockdown, Diddy was removed from his unit so officers could search its contents. He was not entitled to be present for the search. Officers ruffled through his personal notes and left them scattered, out of order, and disorganized. These notes included his work product and notes reflecting communications with his lawyer. The officers also seized Diddy's pens, leaving him unable to take further notes while reviewing discovery during counseled calls. As a result of this lockdown, Diddy's lawyers were delayed in meeting with Diddy, losing time for trial. Additionally, the prison does not allow the lawyers to provide Diddy with even the basic materials necessary for trial prep. We cannot equip him with notebooks, folders, or physical documents, for example. How is a defendant supposed to competently defend himself or consult with counsel in a case of this magnitude without such basic materials? The problem is further compounded by the fact that the laptop we provided to the government nearly a month ago still has not been given to Diddy. Okay, so they're doing these raids, they're doing these sweeps, they're ruffling and rifling through all Diddy's papers. They seized his pens, he can't take notes. The lawyers are trying to send him a notebook, they won't let him have a notebook. They're trying to send him documents, they won't let him look at documents. They're trying to send him a laptop, they won't let him look at a laptop. And I actually do think that it's going to need to be necessary for something to give for the right to a fair trial. And that is because I'm putting myself in the position, right? You have to put yourself in a position that the defendant is in, because just because you might believe that Diddy is guilty, and just because he might actually be, he has not been yet adjudicated guilty in a court of law on these charges, and you are entitled to a fair trial. If I'm thinking of myself in the position, sitting in Diddy's position, I'm like, I need to get through all this evidence. I need to have access to it. I need to be poring over it day and night. They won't let me even have a pen. They won't let me have a notebook. They won't let me have a folder. They're coming in, they're shuffling and rifling my crap all over the place. I don't even know where it was. I don't know what they took out of there. I think that's not fair. I think it's not fair. And a lot of y'all are going to say in the comments, he deserves it. He did this to other people. That all might be true. That all might be true. But that is not the question to ask, whether he deserves it. If he deserves it, then we should just go ahead and have street justice. We should have no courts, no laws, and people should just go out and handle stuff themselves. Okay. Whenever you get the government involved, you have to make sure the government's being fair, because right now to Diddy, it's all fun and games. But the same people trying to the police, the same people squawking and screaming about specifically how Black men don't get fair trials are now all of a sudden y'all don't care no more, and y'all are just saying, oh, well, who cares? No, we have to keep the same energy. Okay. Then he appeals to the 5th and the 6th Amendments. And that's pretty much it on the amended proposed bail package memo. Now, that was docket number 61. There's also a declaration in support of this, and that has a bunch of exhibits, and all those exhibits are sealed. But it's just basically, Mark Agnifilo coming through, or maybe it's that Shapiro girl, one of Diddy's lawyers coming through and saying, here's some exhibits to support our claims, and a declaration. Okay. After that, so that all of those had to do with Diddy's proposed motion for bail. Okay. There's some other motions that are up for debate, that are up for discussion. Now, that brings us to item number 63. This has to do with Diddy's proposed gag order. Remember, they were going back and forth about a gag order. The judge made the gag order to apply to the government and the government agents that are working on this investigation, et cetera, et cetera. Then Diddy's lawyer came back again and said, no, Your Honor, we need the gag order against all the people that are potential witnesses. We need the gag order against lawyers of all these witnesses. The grand jury witness guy who's out doing New York Post interviews and every other thing else, we need a gag order against him, right? All that. Well, the court said, no, hell no. Something's wrong with y'all. No, absolutely not. I said that if government agents are coming out and saying things they are not supposed to be saying, like grand jury material or leaking things, they will get in trouble. Bring the names of those people to me. I am not going to put a gag order on every potential witness in this case. That is a violation of their First Amendment rights, and that is very weird. So the judge denied it, and that's what item number 63 is. The opinion and order to the gag order. It says, balancing the interests at stake, the court has already taken steps to limit what can be said publicly, including issuing an order underscoring the requirements of the Criminal Rule of Procedure 6E and the Local Rule 23.1, and further requiring the government to make those requirements clear to anyone involved in this case. As the court already stated in its order, it will take appropriate action for violations of the rules of that order. The court is open to other tailored proposals that will help ensure a fair trial. Okay, so the court's not even saying, don't come at me with this again. But this is not narrowly tailored in any way. This is not tailored. This is too broad. You're a little bit got way out of hand. Okay. It's a little out of control. As to the mounting civil cases against Diddy, there are further steps that he can take, including seeking relief in particular cases if the parties or their lawyers have made prejudicial statements to the press. Or he could also move to stay those cases pending the resolution of this one, just to give 2 examples. However, the unprecedented relief that Diddy wants is unwarranted, so motion denied. Okay. So that was the next issue, right? The gag order. So the first one was the bail proposed package. The second one's the gag order. The gag order denied. The bail proposed package hasn't been addressed yet, so it's still pending, right? The new bail. What is another problem up at issue in this case, other than the 2 I just named, has to do with an evidentiary hearing. Diddy wants an evidentiary hearing, basically a little mini trial. He wants a mini trial to ascertain who or what or how it was leaked, that CNN tape, right? The him running down the hall like a puma in an altercation that apparently was consensual. Apparently it was a consensual altercation, apparently according to Mark Agnifilo, which sounds deranged and like a totally bad faith argument to make, in my opinion. I think it's not going to get him very far. I think he needs to stop trying to act like Cassie's getting her was consensual. I think he really needs to stop acting like that because it really undermines every other thing that he says. But that's what's up at issue on item 64, okay? It's Diddy's reply, and it's a memo in support of his motion for a hearing. Diddy and his lawyer believe that he is entitled to have a whole little evidence hearing where they call witnesses and they take statements to try and figure out who it was who leaked the CNN tape to CNN, right? Now, for the government's part, the government has said, Your Honor, they're making a big deal about literally nothing because that tape wasn't even in the evidence for the grand jury. Okay. They talking about it being in the grand jury. This did not come up in the grand jury. But then Diddy now has replied back here and said, Your Honor, the government is wrong and stupid. They don't even know what the definition of the appropriate evidence of grand jury evidence is. Grand jury material doesn't necessarily mean that it came up specifically in the grand jury, but only that it could be likely to come up or it could hint about the outcome of a case or something like that. So basically, they're going back and forth. They're still going back and forth on whether or not the judge is going to entertain having a hearing on whether the government leaked that CNN tape or who leaked the CNN tape. Okay. Now, something that came up that I found to be extremely important is that in this document, they actually do say, actually, this is in the order that we just talked about that's denying the gag order. But look at this right here. This is the judge. This right here was written by the judge. See, this is order, opinion and order. As to statements by grand jury witnesses themselves, any grand jury witness may disclose publicly anything that occurred therein, including the questions asked of the witness and the answers given. Okay. This is extremely, extremely important. Write it down in your notebook, okay? Because the way Diddy and his lawyers were trying to argue it in this motion for the gag order was that this witness needed to not be talking about what happened in the grand jury. And I kind of took Diddy and Mark Agnifilo's word for it because they were so adamant about it. But here we are being told by the judge, in the judge's opinion, in the judge's order, quote, any grand jury witness may disclose publicly anything that happened in the grand jury hearing, including the questions asked of the witnesses and the answers that they gave. Okay, so what that guy from the grand jury is out and about talking about what they asked him? The gag order doesn't apply to him. That is wild to me because the way Diddy and his lawyers were trying to argue it made it seem like that grand jury witness was in trouble. And it kind of almost common sense kind of is like, okay, if it's grand jury, like I know from law school and stuff, like it's super secret. It's like super secret. But I guess apparently, according to federal case law in the same district for like 20 years, since 1999, any grand jury witness may disclose publicly anything that happened. Okay. But this is very different from a law enforcement agent. Right? So Mark Agnifilo and them are arguing that not only should witnesses, potential witnesses, and their lawyers be gagged from being able to speak about any of this stuff, but also all the government agents who are working on it. And that's not true. It's actually seems to be, this is what I'm learning here. I mean, this is my understanding of it. All these documents are public. I'm basing it off of these documents. But it's my understanding here that, yes, Department of Homeland Security investigators, etc., they're not supposed to be talking to the New York Post. But like a grand jury witness can talk to the New York Post. I didn't realize that. Okay, so that came out in the arguments and in the presidential case sightings of this little set of documents we're going over today. And then that brings us, of course, to the last and final issue that we do have documents for here, which is naming the victims' names. Okay. Essentially, Diddy is arguing, and I do find it to be a rather compelling argument, that he should know who the names of the victims are that the government is basing their case on. And I want y'all to take note here that Alexandra Shapiro is arguing that she only wants the alleged victims' names. Okay. I find that to be interesting because they are not asking for all witness names. They only want the victims' names. And it's like, well, it kind of undermines your argument, in my opinion, if you're only asking for the victims' names. What do you want all the witnesses' names? But then again, what they're kind of arguing is, okay, how are we going to argue that Diddy didn't kidnap somebody when we don't even know who's alleging they were kidnapped? The government's argument is kind of like, well, if he don't know who he kidnapped, that's his own problem. But then Diddy's defense lawyers are arguing, which I do think is pretty compelling. Okay, but what about, we're saying some of these allegations are false. How are we going to possibly know who might be making a false allegation? Anybody can be making an allegation about anything, and we need to start preparing our defense against this. We don't need to wait till the last second. At the extreme least, give us the victims' alleged names, so that we can start trying to ascertain the factual allegations around the victims and the stories of them, because the counts all allege and hinge on victims. Okay. Now, I mean, it's pretty obvious who one of the victims is. That would be Cassie, victim 1, but they haven't really named any other ones. And the government's contention is that they don't have to. Now, that is pretty much everything that has been filed. There's one more document here that was filed on the 9th. And this is just a letter motion asking about when they can do the next hearings, etc. So just to give y'all a TLDR rundown conclusion here, the major issues, the major things that we did cover and that have been covered in this little chunk of updates that we did on this video have to do with the following. Number 1, Diddy wants out of jail. He's saying there's many reasons he should get to be out of jail, including here's a new bail package that's more serious than the first. Here is some evidence, and it's all redacted and blacked out, that the government didn't give you, Your Honor. And number 3, it's unconstitutional and untenable for Diddy to be able to actually prepare for his trial, so please let him out. Okay, that's issue 1 that these documents deal with. Issue 2 has to do with the gag order. Diddy wanted more stricter prohibitions on people's speech, and the judge said, no, something is definitely wrong with y'all, so no. But if you have something more specific you want to bring to me, that's fine. I'm not saying you can't bring more gag order requests, but this one that you just presented to me is no. It's going to be a no from me, dog. And the next major issue that was dealt with here had to do with the evidentiary hearing regarding who did or did not allegedly so-called leak the CNN tape. That one's still pending. That one's still going back and forth. And finally, Diddy reiterates his motion yet again that he wants the victims' names. Finally, the government did file a filing proposing when they can reply to the next things. And that's all there is on the docket for now. That's all I really had for today. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation, and neither is reading public documents. Girl, I love you, meaning, bye.
Welcome into my world. You're playing my game. Thought that you could come up and fitting off of my knee. Talking out the side of your neck like you're insane. Cortisol levels to the roof. Inflame. Kids these days so shameless. Selling out real friends for a paycheck. Mama didn't teach them no home training. Wanna be me so bad, but they failing. Step to the plate though. I'll take a challenger. I ain't scared of no low life scavenger. I should warn you though, if you haven't heard, I ain't no Colleen ukulele ballanger. Shots been fired. Run and tell that. Say it to my face though. Now behind my back. Won't be long till you share it in the group chat. And when I call you up, you're gonna backtrack. And you should've kept my name out your mouth. As we go, how it all turned out.